see the path to the championship. I can see it.
The Coca-Cola 600 belongs to Ryan Blaney.
Blaney's learned how to win over the last couple of months.
Blaney! Harvick! They spin behind him! It's going to be Blaney!
We're going to win this thing.
Ryan Blaney is going to win his way into the championship for...
You have to run a perfect race to get it.
Ryan Blaney is a NASCAR Cup Series champion!
What an unbelievable year. What an unbelievable playoffs for us.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 141 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. This podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media back in 2014. Now, each weekly episode of the show offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and special guest interviews all throughout the year. This week, we break down Team 12's run in the Worth 400 at Dover Motor Speedway. Steve, welcome back. Episode 141. Worth 400, Worth car. Was it worth watching?
Hey, I tell you what, they did some activation, didn't they? The sponsor activation was awesome. Because Worth was everywhere at the track, and then for about 45, 46, 47 laps or so, the Worth car was in front too. So, it was a great weekend. In the practice and the qualifying went well, and the early part of the race went really well. And the race itself didn't turn out too bad for the 12 team. Overall, a really good, solid day. So it'd be some good stuff to get into.
Yeah, I would say, it was great to see him lead laps again, getting stage points and a pretty decent finish. And honestly, I think even though with the ups and downs that we'll talk about that happened in this race for the team, I kind of feel like they finished around where they were supposed to finish in this race, just based on how the car kind of ran in traffic or, the handling and the speed that the Fords had and that kind of thing. I feel like they put in a really solid day, and it's something that they really needed after the last few weeks. Where they've not necessarily lost a lot of points and stuff, but they've just kind of had some down finishes. And this is maybe something that they could build on. I tried to do a better job, and I feel like this worked for the first half of the race to try and because I love Dover, to try and take in the race as best as possible as a whole, kind of watching the racing that was going on. But the second half of the race, I was totally zoned in on the in-car camera and the scanner. And part of this, I think, is just because I just continue to get frustrated with the race broadcast. And the one thing I will always say, and people disagree with me about it on social media all the time, is the commercials don't bother me. People always complain oh, we missed another crash because they were at commercial. It's it is so hard to predict when a crash is going to happen. And, they have so many commercials, or they're this and they're that, or they're putting it, they have to pay the bills. You see these new TV contracts that are, billions and billions of dollars. The networks have to make the money back. Commercials are what they are. It's not F1, which, at least their last TV package was not really worth a ton of money with ESPN to where they can go commercial free and it not really hurt them. So that's not going to happen. That's never going to happen in NASCAR. Maybe they get some sort of subscription service in the first. So anyway, that's my little rant on, I don't care about how many commercials there are, but I do care about the quality of the broadcast and the directing. And we missed, especially a really crucial restart at one point. They really botched it because they're trying to do a fancy wide shot of the grandstands and then zoom into the restart. Totally missed the restart. That was probably the most important one of the day that impacted several cars. Harvick's been great, but now it's Harvick and Boyer bickering back and forth is getting a little distracting now. And I don't know. It's just been a little off. So I feel like I tried to watch the race as a whole and enjoyed it. There was comers and goers. The Hendrick cars were driving through the field. There was multi lanes of racing at points, but then totally just zoned in on the 12 car and what they were doing.
Well, I usually don't know about any of this stuff till after the race, because then I read the coverage, because I watch the whole thing through the in-car camera and the scanner, even though the second TV has the other stuff on it. Usually that TV, the cable or whatever, is a couple seconds behind. So as it is a couple seconds behind, I hear something, see something on the other things, and then I look up to see what the result of it was. And then that's when I noticed that broadcast is horrible because I saw it on the in car, and then I heard it on the scanner. But then I look up and I got nothing. And these are things that may be Ryan related or may not be Ryan related. But the truth is, they're having some sort of impact on the race, obviously, or the spotter wouldn't mention it, or I know that they use in-car cameras for 4 or 5 cars every weekend. They're paid sponsorships, right? And they're cameras that are on the hood and out the back window and over the tailgate, or over the side, or they got all these great camera angles for the 3 or 4 in-car cameras that they use, that are sponsored. But like on the app every week that we pay for, they have one in-car camera from inside the car. And I get more info off of one guy on X, Twitter, Basso, Basso 488, every week, finds, tapes, records all these things, and then puts them out after the race. So why, I don't understand, when there's special circumstances or situations, can't Fox do this? Why don't they have all these, I know it's a bunch of them to look at, but let's say they're just recording them the whole time, okay? Nobody has to look at them. All they have to do is do what Basso did. Basso saw the wreck that collected the 23, the 24, and the 20 on TV after 4 or 5 replays, and it was like minutes later, they finally figured out it was the 71. But when you watch the in-car camera from the 7 car who was trailing it, you'll see the 45 car make it 3 wide going into 1 and 2, move up into the 71, causing the 71 to wiggle into the 23. I learned all of that by watching an in-car camera on X half hour after the race. So what are they doing? I don't get it. I know it's maybe a harder sport to cover than, let's say, Formula One, where there's 20 cars and they all spread out, and but even there, they've got a camera in every car, and they can show you when something happens from all 20 different cars. You know what I mean? So same thing. Basso figured out, I don't know how many of them he records during the race, but he figured out which car to follow and show you the view of. He had 2 of them actually, because he showed a car next to the 7-2 on that restart. And it was just like, yeah, TV is just not doing a very good job right now of and we'll see later on in the race when we go through this coverage that Ryan is involved in a stack up on one of the restarts. And it took them 10 or 15 laps till they found the damage on the 19 car. And then nobody knew about the damage on the 12 car until the 12 car pitted an extra time during a caution when they could pit and not lose any position. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about Dover, because even I didn't watch much of the Xfinity race, but listening to it and then seeing people's reactions on X throughout, like they had the same issue with crashes. Like it just seems like they didn't get good replays of any of it, and they did eventually have to go back, like you're saying, and use in-car cameras to show any semblance of what happened. So I don't know if it's like the speeds are just so fast at Dover on that mile track that's shorter that it's hard to keep up with, but it just I don't know what it is about there that they just really are struggling with that. So I mean, Fox has been a punching bag for the last couple of years, and it's easy to kind of hit them when they're down. But when you are watching and there's plenty of things to be annoyed about. I just want to see the race, and I don't necessarily need too many frills and special things or comedy segments, and just show me the restart. It's great to get those scene setting shots like at the beginning and end of a broadcast, but I don't need that every time there's a restart. This big zoom out from the grandstands and amazing show. Like, just show me. Because the other thing that I saw, a lot of people are blaming Hamlin because we didn't see the restart. Like, oh, he must have got such a big jump because it's Hamlin jumping the restart again, and that's probably not what really happened. It's just I think the 48 or somebody didn't get going, and it caused this big stack up. So
yeah, it causes stack up.
Just causes so much confusion and extra angst and anger on social media that doesn't need to be there. But it's because we didn't have the facts presented to us, because we didn't get down to the restart until they were already heading toward the start finish line. So anyway, I don't want to start off on a negative tone, but man, if people have been complaining for years and nothing's changed. So I don't know that anything is specifically going to change in this instance. But all we can say, Congrats to Ryan Truex, who won his second straight Xfinity race at Dover and still isn't a full-time driver. And congratulations, I guess, are in order to the 11 car that we'll talk about who wins this race. But great job, great blue collar, solid day for the 12 team, and it all starts off with practice and qualifying.
Yeah, Saturday they were in Group B. Group A, the 24 car is like the fastest in Group A. With 7 minutes left in Group A, Tim comes on and talks about how the track is rubbering up. And this is going to be the story between Saturday and Sunday. It's a little bit cooler on Saturday, in the 60s maybe. And, 24 was like one of the top 10 lap averages early on there. But Group B starts. The 2 and the 22 are also in Group B, so that was kind of cool because it kind of gave you the whole team, they had a little bit of a delay, and talking about a lot of chunky rubber in the second group. So the tires, when the track temperature is warmer, the tires will rubber up the track where they'll kind of like melt into the track a little bit. But when it was cooler like this, it just grated the tires and caused just rubber. So something they were going to be worried about for Sunday. Johnson says we're going to run out 15 straight, run a pit road, second time out. In the first practice, Tim said the 8 and the 31 had quartered the right side, right fronts. So, Johnson says we're going to stick with our plan. No more than 15 laps just because of this. And Ryan's about the 4th or 5th car of pit road. And I talk about that because when you're trying to put up a lap time and that first lap or the first fast lap, a lot of times it depends on where you're at and how many guys are behind you and whether you got to check up a little bit or, but early on, he's the fastest single lap. And then the 71 car spins out at the wall, had a red flag. He had it was the top 5 lap average, but at that point didn't get a chance to run a 10 lap segment because of that. And they come in and Ryan's interested about the courting, and Tim and Ryan discuss the marbling that's going on. And Ryan says it seems like Bristol a little bit, and that's scary, because that was like no fun. And Jonathan says Timmy told him to do 5 more and then bring it if there's any issues. With about 10 minutes left. And they were going to make one more run at pit road. And actually, TV did show this. Ryan kind of missed on his first attempt. He kind of whipped. He didn't make it down and ran over where the commitment cone is. So he got it up to speed for another lap to practice that coming to pit road. Ran 24 total laps. The 15 ends up hitting the wall. Because Tim just comes on and goes, wow, that was big. So we get to qualifying here, and he's going to be in Group B for qualifying, but Group A, the top 5 are the 24, the 11, the 16, the 10, and the 8, which in hindsight now is really interesting. Group B, Ryan went out 12th there, and actually it was going to be 10th because the 71 and the 15 were not going to take a lap. The 20 also spins on his lap. And when Ryan does go out, he runs a 22.069 on his second lap, which puts him top of the 5, 12, the 45, 34, 48, and 14. And the 45 and the 34 were the only ones who ran 1 lap on their tires. So when they get to the break there and Ryan gets in the car again, he asks who's the quickest at that point, which was the 8 car. In a 22.196. And when he does, after he does get done with his lap here, Ryan's, it was a little bit tight and just, he was just a hair off. The 8 won the pole, Ryan P2. But really good, successful day because now P2, you get to pick great pit stall and, you get to start right up on front. And
I thought something kind of figured out at these fast concrete tracks. So.
Yeah.
Maybe gets the pole at Nashville. We'll see.
Yeah, that'd be good. So we go to race day. Excuse me. Stages of 120, 250, and 400. 9 sets of tires. A fuel run, it says, of 92 to 99. The 20, the 71, the 15 to the rear. The 15 had to do a backup car, actually. Pit stall 9. which has the big opening in front of them, and the 47 would be behind them. And Kyle took the outside for the initial start of the race. So,
Yes, can I interject one thing before we start? You know what was
sure.
refreshing about this week?
Hmm.
Didn't hear a single thing about, hey Ryan, can you save me a few laps? Hey Ryan, can you no fuel saving was talked
No fuel
about
saving, yeah.
at all.
Yeah. Oh, there
This week.
was there was one point Tim said something about save. Just make sure you're saving. But I think sometimes I don't think they even say it they don't even need to say it. But Ryan and Tim talk about the track rubbering up and how it's warmer, and they think it should rubber up instead of marbling. And TV does a good job of covering this. By lap 1, he's up to second. It clears out the second here. Lap 5, about 0.45 back up the 8. Lap 10, almost 7/10 back. And then the 45 running behind him is 1.1 back. So good gap to the car behind him, not worried about pressure, and can just focus forward on running good laps, trying to get closer. Lap 15, 0.6 back. And he says it's starting to go free on landing. Lap 20, 0.4 back here, and the 45 is 1.3 behind him. At lap 25 starts to get interesting. Only 0.24 back of the 8 car, and the next 10, 15 laps stays like that until lap 39 here, where he passes the 8 in 3 and 4. And at that point, I thought, okay, let's get to the halfway point like that, and then let it rain. Ryan says he needs to be tightened up a number or so at this point. And they start working with lap traffic here. And the 45 is kind of closing in on him because of this. And we got a caution for the 38 car. And Ryan says we took off pretty good. It was a little neutral, and then they built to free. So he wants to tighten up a little bit. Jonathan says 4 tires here. They're coming in first and leaving first. Once again, I give you 2 different times here. The NASCAR app says 9.77, but I believe it's actually like about a half second quicker, the timing of scoring that the pit crew guys use, which is 9.27, which, Johnson says they saw no cords there. Ryan chooses the low lane, the 24 chooses the outside, the restart lap 48, and by 3 and 4, he's clear of everything. And lap 50, he's got about a 0.3 of a second lead. At lap 70, it's almost a second lead now on the 24. And Johnson says, let him know with 50 to go, the stage will be running it out. So just kind of let him know, don't worry about pitting. We're going to go to the end. At lap 75, we're getting into some lap traffic here. The 24 is closing a bit. And at lap 79, the 24 does pass. Ryan goes to second here. And lap 85, he's kind of closing back in on him again, about 0.43 back of the 24. And the 45 is close to about 3 car lengths behind him. So, and lap 90, Ryan's trying some different lines, trying to get out of the out of the dirty air and try and diamond the quarter a little bit. And he says he thinks he's just a little tight now. And he's only 0.2 back on lap 95. And the 45 is now faded to a second behind him. Now, at lap 100, this is this lap traffic stuff that they talked about on the broadcast later on, where a guy goes a lap down, okay? He fights hard with the leader because he doesn't want to go a lap down in case a caution happens, and, he wants to stay in the lucky dog position or whatever it is. But he's already a lap down at this point. The 51 car starts holding everybody up, Ryan and anybody coming up behind Ryan, right? And literally the 45 and the 19 come up behind Ryan and pass him during all this. So Ryan goes back to 4th. And he was trying to be a nice guy. And I think that's part of it. Like if you watch the in-car camera, when the 45 gets to that 51, he almost knocks him out of the way. 45 was just totally aggressive. And he just, and I think maybe you have to be that way, but you shouldn't have to be that way. Like I said, the leader already passed you. Now it's the second place car coming to you, your spotter, and you should know, Haley lost my all-star vote right there. He had it with his new commercial.
Yeah.
but he lost it just there.
It's just frustrating sequence because I think I said to you, I feel like, some guys get by Ryan here because of this. And I said, I feel like those people were coming, but at least Ryan could have raced them for the position and not just give it up all in one fell swoop because the 51 kind of holding everybody up. But it's just, I don't know.
He for a lap or two, he held him up enough where they got to him. And then 51 is aero blocking Ryan, and then he's trying to get around that aero block, and he's not being able to concentrate on the aero block. He'd be able to do the guys behind him, right? Because you're right. If they're in open air, he probably stays in front of the 45 for another 5-10 laps. Unless the 45 is just that much better. And none of these cars all day. That's another thing we really didn't say yet. None of these cars were that much better than anybody else. It's all whoever won the track position, whether it was in the pits or a mistake that was made. So yeah, Haley, no, on my vote. At lap 110, in fourth, 1.53 back of the lead. And at lap 115, we got the 24, the 19, the 45, the 12, and the 5 are the top 5. The 19 actually ends up taking the lead within that lap. And while Ryan's only about a second back of all that, they were still grouped pretty good for being fourth place. And then at lap 118, we get a caution for the 6 car. And this is right at the end of the stage. So, basically they finished 19 winning the stage. Ryan finishing fourth. He says they just maybe took a little bit too much of a change there. And this was something interesting that was said about coming through like turn 4. He says they just run through the rubber in 4 and power down. I don't know how they do it. So the way they're coming through that corner and heading up the track, coming out of 4 toward the wall, for him, the front end gets too unstable. And he says these other guys are just continuing to hit the accelerator as they do it. And he may be losing ground on that, and I don't know if it's a Ford thing, because, a lot of people are thinking, well, it's the Fords, and it might be the way the front end of the Ford is, that it just doesn't handle very well in that situation, or, maybe it's a horsepower thing where, when they put the hammer down, it's just different than when he puts the hammer down. That's just not quite sure yet. But he leads, at that point, about 45 laps in that segment. But he says, let's make about half of that adjustment back. Now, once again, pit times. The NASCAR app says 9.17 or 8.67. I will say, let's refer to Stacking Pennies and see what Flores says, because I'm sure if they did an 8-point-something stop, he's definitely going to mention it on Stacking Pennies this week. In fourth, coming out third on this sequence of pit stops here. 71 green laps there, and started to have some fording on the right front. 19 is the leader taking the top, 24 taking the bottom, Ryan taking the top behind the leader. Restarting at lap 130 here, he clears to P4 behind the 45. And the 11 is behind Ryan. At lap 140, half a second back of the 45. Almost 2 seconds back of the leader, the 19. At lap 150, the 24 and the 45 are ahead of Ryan, racing for position. So Ryan's kind of closing on them as they're kind of messing with each other. At lap 160, he's about 2.6 seconds back of the leader, who's the 19. And only half a second back of the 45 in third. So, right there with everybody, But once again, everybody's pretty much the same lap times, all within about a tenth of each other. Nobody's really gaining, like, looks like, and the longer we get in a run, sometimes somebody does a little bit with their tires, but not very often. Ryan says it's a little tight here, free getting into the corner. He's about 1.5 seconds back of the, to the 5 car behind him. At lap 170, the 5 does pass, so he's back to 5th. And Jonathan tells him we're 10 to 20 laps to a pit stop here. And at lap 175, it's 1 second back to the 48 in lap traffic. And then at lap 183, the green flag cycle starts. Now, as we see, because the 7 car stays out for good portion of this, it's only about a half a second difference between the old tires and the new tires. Not a huge fall off, but a lap or two, that's a second, right? Within 2 laps. That's so, they take a lap or two to pit, but then again, on the other hand, they're kind of like making sure that a caution doesn't come out, because you don't want to get trapped 2 laps down. That's the only thing about pitting at Dover is it's not always just 1 lap. Sometimes it's 2 laps you lose, depending on how far back you are. So they were a little bit careful on that end, but a couple cars pitted a lap to 2 laps in front of them. So when they get back on the track, coming out of the pits and coming out of turn 2, trying to get back onto the track, 48th, 11, the 9, and the 8 all come out and literally like right next to him and in front of him. Like just that much of a difference in a lap or two. The 5 will end up assuming the lead at some point. But lap 200, the 9 is P9 and the 7 is still out there leading. Lap 220,
Definitely just wanted to mention like the crew or the pit crew was for the last almost all year has been great. But this race specifically, they were on it every single stop. So I don't want people to think that the pit crew had anything to do with this. It has to do with when they pitted. And I just got to discuss a little bit to you about like rolling time and, entry to pit road, exit to pit road, where he, flows back out onto the track too, can have an impact on this. But yeah, the pit stops all day long were super solid.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. I forgot to quote this one. The NASCAR app, once again, 9.44, or my adjusted would be 8.94. Once again, under 10 seconds on a green flag stop, no less. So, extremely good. By lap 220, he's up to 8th here, which is about 6.4 seconds back of the 5 car and 2.8 seconds back of the 45, who's in 7th. Lap 250, the 5 wins the stage, Ryan 8th. Now, 2 stages and stage points in both stages. So once again, really, really good job there. Ryan says it took off tight on the green flag stop. They're going to pit here, 4 tires. This one's a little longer. NASCAR app has it at 10.34. I have it at 9.84. But in 8th and comes out 7th. They still gained a position on pit road here. The 11 takes the lead on this stop, which pretty much is where the race is won. Because I think this is that one they show on TV where they're 3 wide coming down and 48 kind of bails out of the middle. But the 11 wins the race off pit road here. Restart at lap 260 here, and Ryan does clear like the 45, the 54, the 9 on the outside and gets to 6th. So
yeah, this is great to watch.
But
great to watch on the in-car too.
This is where that checkup happened too.
Yes, that's true.
See, so this checkup happens in the high lane, but then something happened in the low lane too, because the low lane had this issue within the lap. And like I said, within 1 lap, and Ryan got it rolling, he does pass all those cars. So, and he asks right away, is the nose okay? First time by, Jonathan says it looked fine, but they were going to look at some pictures. And at lap 270, the 11 has a 3-second lead over the 5 car. He's kind of blown him away there. And he's 5 seconds ahead of Ryan in 6th. At lap 280, the 19 has damage from that restart they showed on TV. It's got something that came loose in the front end, splitter. And Ryan says he's starting to go free now. At lap 290, up to 6th, 1.39 back of the 19 and 6.89 back of the leader, the 11. Funny thing about the 19 damages and watching TV up front top shows you this damage, but lap times for him never went south. He actually was just as fast as everybody else, maintained his position the whole time. At lap 300 here, Ryan says he's feeling a little more competitive here. And Johnson says 20 more till the pit stops. They're now chasing the 48 car, actually. He's kind of come backwards. At lap 305, he's only 0.75 back of the 48. And at lap 318, they pit. And once again, either 10.44 or 9.94, whichever one you're going to want to go with there. And then literally 3 laps later, we get a caution for the 47. Now, the 31 car was still on the track. He had not pitted yet. Ryan was cycled all the way back up to 9th at this point, but he was the first car lap down, which in a way is good because as the lucky dog, you get the lap back no matter what, and you can still pit. You're going to be tail end, except a bunch of guys are doing wave round. So you get to go in front of the wave round guys though, too. So this actually lines up really good for him on the restart here. And that Ryan asked him, how's this going to work? And he says, okay, go ahead and do the wave round. they're going to put some tape on the nose. So when they do pit, it just, it's going to take longer because, they had to put some tape on where they hit their damage.
It's one of those where you said it's good, and it's the best of what could have happened in this situation. Like, you don't want to see this happen. It is a problem that he has to start behind the lap down cars because he's several cars away from where he was in position, and he does lose about 2 spots because the 10 and 31 I think stayed out too. So
stayed out.
But if you're counting your blessings on things that could have been bad, it could have been a lot worse. He could have been stuck in the wave around and then
had to do a wave round with everybody else
next too. So
right.
Yeah, but it could have been worse, but I think they made the best of the situation.
Yeah, because they go ahead and they get the 4 tires and and you watch the in-car. It's great because they do the 4-tire change and you watch everybody go climb back over the pit wall, and then like 3 guys climb back over that are actual road crew. Raymond, I think Raymond's the guy who had the tape in his hand. Raymond Fox, third. So he climbs back over and they repair the damage. And all they really had to worry about is where the pace car was, because they were still going to be allowed to line up where they're going to be allowed to line up, because this wasn't like 2 trips down pit road or anything like that. It was the normal stop they're allowed to make after they take their wave around, or after they take their lucky dog. And like I said, then they get to move up in front of the wave around. So like you said, there was only like 3 cars in between them and the actual top 8. So, not bad. The 5 car takes the top. Ryan takes the top for the restart at lap 328. And we get this caution for the 20 to 23 of the 24. At first, I have written down here the 71 cause, because watching replay real quick and then looking something up, saw the 71 tag the left rear quarter panel of the 23. Once again, like I said, have learned since then on X, it's at BASSO488. He tapes all these in-car cameras, and sometimes it's the next day or day or two. You'll see some great stuff. Today, he didn't waste no time. It was the 7 in-car camera who's directly behind the 23 for this restart. And you see the 45 come off his left side and go right below the 71 into turn 2. And he literally kind of washes up coming out of the turn and squeezes everybody up the hill. And the 71 wiggles. He's trying to control it, but he wiggles, and as he wiggles the right front end into the left rear quarter panel of the 23. So the squirrel, as it was mentioned in an interview, was actually a teammate. It was Friendly Fire that took out the 23. Hopefully that doesn't happen to him this weekend.
One thing on this restart is that Ryan actually had a really great restart going too. He took everybody in front of him 3 wide, and I think it advanced up like at least 2 rows when the caution had come out. So
yeah, so he got rid of, which is one way or the other, he gotten rid of the lap down cars. It would have been running with them. The 11 leads at this point, and then lap 334, the pits are open. They're staying out. The 11 takes the top. Ryan takes top behind the 8 car. The 31 is in the low lane with the 10 car. So this is something they kind of like made note of, because they don't want to get stuck behind the 31 if they could help it on this restart. At lap 338, and they get up to 8th. And at lap 340, he does pass the 31, gets the 7th. And then at lap 350, he is 0.436 back of the 8 car, almost 5 seconds back of the 11 in first place. And this just kind of like stays like this. Like, I have a note here. Everyone in the top 10 is either running a 23.7 or a 23.8. I mean, nobody is literally moving forward or has adjusted. They've all adjusted so much that they're perfectly in sync with each other. At lap 355, he's chasing Chase. Chase is kind of going backwards. That's the only thing where you're really going to pass anybody, is if somebody kind of like used up their tires and didn't equal them out enough where they could hang where they were hanging. Lap 370, he's almost 7/10 back of the 9, but almost 7 seconds back of the 11 car. And he's lap 375 is starting to catch the 9. At lap 385, he's within about a second of the 8 car, because I think the 98 were like back and forth. At lap 390, like I said, once again, all the leaders are running at 24.4 or 25.5. And he's chased the 10 car at lap 395, which would have been really fun. But 11 wins, Ryan gets to 7. But like I said, overall, a really good points day. And his post-race interview, like I always say about listen to what he says, his post-race interview, he kind of said that. He says, we were like a 4th to 7th place car, I thought. And that's pretty much kind of where it ended up.
Yeah, I think if that caution doesn't come out during that last pit cycle, I think maybe he gets to 5th, but probably finishes 6th. So, he finishes a spot off of that. I mentioned to you before we started recording that the last 20 laps were really frustrating to watch because there's like 2 or 3 opportunities there where the 8 and the 10 are racing each other extremely hard. And the 9 and the 12 catch up. The 9 even gets, beside the 8 at one point, and it looked like Ryan was going to follow him through, but just the way the air is manipulated with this car and stuff, he was already saying he was tight in the traffic. So gets super tight, falls back, and then there's a couple more times where he gets right up there. I mean, he got side by side, well, not side by side. He just got to the quarter panel of the 10, I think twice in the closing laps, but couldn't make the pass happen, I think, without really forcing the issue. And Ryan's not going to, crash a guy for 6th place. So I think he just settled in on the last lap and finished 7th. So great points day, stage points in both stages, led 45 laps. Great to see the car out front in leading laps again. It just, you saw immediately when, even towards the end of that run when he was leading, I think the 45 was catching him and stuff. So he didn't have the fastest car on the long run. Didn't think he necessarily had a car that could win the race without some things really falling his way strategy wise. So solid day. I'm not happy with where he finished exactly because I think it could have been a top 5, but he's not crashed out. He didn't finish 20th, and they stayed put in the same position in points.
Well, that's why I texted you at one point. I'm like, I get my expectations so high up there when he leads during a race because you know they're good enough to be out front. But how the race ends up unfolding, and like I said, everybody at the end was all within the same 2/10 of each other per lap. And I say everybody, I mean like 15, top 15, top 20. Everybody on the lead lap are pretty much run the same lap time. So once you get to that point, the box is so small that really the only thing that can change position is somebody making a mistake, somebody burning up the tires, not being on equal tires as everybody else. And, that just wasn't happening. These guys are good enough for the most part where that doesn't happen. So, yeah, overall, you can't be disappointed really with where it ended up. You just, like I said, I get like a little bit like excited because I see him out front. I'm like, well, yeah, he can be doing that all race.
Now, the finish did get exciting between the 5 tracking down the 11 and almost nearly getting there. And I mentioned that I thought the first half of the race, the racing was good. There were, the Hendrick cars didn't all qualify that well. They were all coming up through the field. The 19, the 45, they all came up through the field, passing guys. What do you think? Because I felt like, this is going to be a slam dunk for Jeff Gluck's good race poll as far as being a good race. And maybe there was still more of that in the second half when I wasn't paying attention to the whole field and I was just focused on Ryan. But if it did change, like, what do you think it was because the track just really rubbered in, or the people that were good got to the front and they were going to stay there? Like, it didn't seem like the aero blocking and being stuck in position didn't really happen until the second half of this race.
Yeah, I think most of the races with this car are like that. To tell you the truth, as the race goes on and everybody gets to adjust them, everybody has a game plan. 20 minutes of practice is sometimes enough time to figure out some stuff, and we know Jonathan brings the 12 car really well adjusted, to start a race. But what happens after the race starts, the second set of pit stops, as you get to the third stage, a lot of them have it dialed in where they're loose or tight with the only adjustments they can make, and they're not it's not what it used to be. They mess with brake bias a little bit in the cockpit, and then they mess with track bar a little bit, but air pressure, and that's it. So they know which direction to go a lot of times, and the cars are all close enough where you don't get much more. And then, like I said, the air blocking thing becomes the thing, because now these guys are all looking out their rearview mirror and hitting to the turn. And if the guy is within 5 or 6 car lengths, it gives them enough time to react and go ahead and run the same line. And then it just makes it impossible because they get that beach ball effect, that they talk about, where you can't get to it, can't get past it, can't get through it. And Yeah, it's just going to be like that till they figure out ways to. That's why the tire thing ended up being such a exciting thing at Bristol. Is the tires gave them something where everybody had to drive different, and it didn't matter. It's just how much did you use up your tires, and over 20 laps and 30 laps. It wasn't like over 50 laps either. It was over 20 laps. All of a sudden yours were worn out and theirs weren't, and they ran a better line, and it made a half a second a lap difference. Well, until they figure out how to do that everywhere, this is kind of what it's going to be like. The mile and a halfs are the best racing of the bunch because it's harder to aero block at the mile and a halfs because a lot of these tracks that are set up three or four wide lanes, and if they rubber in properly, you can run good lap times in any one of the 3 or 4 lanes. So that's what makes the mile and a halfs a better racing, with this car.
So after 11 races in the 2024 season, Ryan Blaney sits 7th in the NASCAR Cup Series overall point standings, 68 points back of the leader. That leader is Kyle Larson in first. Martin Truex Jr. is in second, 15 points back, followed by Chase Elliott in third. This week's winner, Denny Hamlin, in fourth, moves up 2 positions. In fifth is Tyler Reddick. Sixth is William Byron. Again, Ryan Blaney is in seventh. Ty Gibbs in his sophomore season in 8th position so far, 87 points back of the leader. Alex Bowman had a strong run today, moves up 1 position to the 9th position in points. And he's actually tied points-wise with Ross Chastain, but he does, I believe, have the tiebreaker here with a better finish. But Ross Chastain moves down 1 spot to the 10th position. So Bowman and Chastain are 108 points back of the leader. Ryan Blaney, again, I mentioned, had another great run when it comes to stage points. So he's accumulated 87 stage points so far. But unfortunately, he's lost that second spot in stage points that everybody's tracking. Truex now is in second with 91 points earned in stages. And Larson, who's the points leader overall, also leads the way in stage points with 126. So that pretty much wraps up the go ahead.
I was at this point, it was this point last year, somebody posted a thing showing where they were in the standings going into this week, actually last year. And Ryan was actually in better position now than he was last year.
Yep.
So if that tells you anything, just keep chopping, right? I saw that in the Discord, with I think it was Barney Rubble with the axe, just hammering at a tree. Just keep chopping and be better by the end of the year. But one great thing right now is the pit crew is gelled already. If they maintain this and keep this up all season, they're going to be the best crew on pit road. They for the longest time they had the best 4-stop tire average, and it probably hasn't changed yet because of all the great things. So yeah, I mean, they are going the right direction. They're they're the best Ford, obviously. So the sky's not falling just yet. Just get this win under our belt right away. Next weekend I'm going to go there and I'm going to try to bring the Team Mez luck with us.
Yes, for sure. So before we hit to Kansas, one last thing to clean up when it comes to the Worth 400 at Dover Motor Speedway, and that's the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And great week for me, but I think it was really easy. A place like Dover, there's a lot of guys that just always run well at Dover, and I tried to pretty much put all of them into my starting lineup here. So starters, Denny Hamlin got me 53 points with his win. Kyle Busch got me 42 points. Martin Truex Jr. got me 51 points. Ryan Blaney got me 40 points. And AJ Allmendinger had a stronger run going early on, slipped a little bit toward the end, only got me 24 points overall. And I had Logano in the garage. Now, actually, I did have Blaney in the garage to start the race, but when he kind of kept it in the top 10 all day, and I saw Logano was running back in the 20s most of the day, I flopped those two. So that was a perfect move for me. Featured matchups, I picked Busch over Reddick. That was correct. I picked Bowman over Chastain. That was correct. I picked Larson over Elliott. That was correct. And I picked Hamlin over Bell, and that was correct. You would think with all those points I earned for my starters and sweeping the featured matchups, that would have been a lock for the top 10, but unfortunately, I finished 4 points out of the top 10 in 12th with 250 points earned on the weekend at Dover. How did Team Mez 12 shake out this week?
It's interesting you said that about like your garage guy, because there's my strategy with the garage guy is two things. One is he in a crash before the end of stage two? Okay. If somebody within the lineup is in a crash before the end of stage two, I bring the garage guy in pretty much knowing the finish. But the other thing I also look at is who gets stage points of the six guys I have, and I'm going to choose five of them for the end of the race. Um, you know, who's gotten stage points? So I had Kyle Busch, Tyler Reddick, Denny Hamlin, which is pretty good. And I had Ryan. And then I had William Byron because William finished second in the first stage. My garage guy was Logano, and he didn't get any stage points in either stage. So I right away stuck with Byron because, like, no matter where I thought where Byron finished it, he was going to earn more points than Logano, except for the fact that he crashed out. He ended up in that crash. And it would have only been an 8-point difference between the two of them in that manner. But if he stays into the race and ends up 12th or 15th or whatever, he would have had those extra stage points over Logano too. So I had Reddick over Bush. That was the one I got wrong, but I did have Bowman over Chastain. I had Larson over Elliott, and I had Denny over Bell. So I did really good. Anytime I get 3 out of 4, I'm pretty happy. But could have been a couple more points. The Truex thing I should have jumped on. I didn't think about it till you were just talking about it. I'm like, Truex really is the guy to choose there. If your name is Truex, it's your Dover, Delaware. But I had Denny, and I figured Denny was the other guy, and he was. So
You would have thought 11-time winner Jimmy Johnson would have been the guy, but unfortunately, man, he ended up laps down in this race and just struggling in that next gen car. Whereas Corey Heim jumps in for Eric Jones and I believe finishes the best of all 3 Legacy Motor Club cars in his Cup debut in 25th. So I can't always just say it's like, oh, you don't know the car. But anyway, always tough. I mean, Jimmy had a lot of he had an in-car camera, so they got to show that while he was getting lapped, I guess. Mm-hmm. But
he finished 20. He finished 28th, though, right?
All right. Okay.
Still running.
So Mez 12, your team finished 39th overall this week at Dover. Again, I finished in the 12th position, 250 points. You had 216 points, I believe. So not super far off, but here's how the top 10 shakes out. And it actually starts with a tie for 9th with Frank Fan 12 and Fike 21, 254 points. And 8th was Go Larson, 255. And 7th was Al 12 Fan, 258. 6th is Pocono Lady with 264 points. Rochi 12, 5th with 265. And 3rd, we have a tie between hashtag LGM and Christian Dana, 267 points. And 2nd was Racers F or Racer SF, 274 points. And leading the way and winning the weekend at Dover Motor Speedway in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League is Cool Guy 2K, 277 points. Now let's swap over to the overall standings in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. And how about this, Steve? 24th position, Team Blaney host Adam, 2,005 points. 23rd position, Mez 12, 2,010 points. So I have managed to, in the last couple of weeks, to really close that gap. So you got a 5-point buffer between your team and my team. So it's on now.
And I'm done using Ryan too. So I think I've used up my Ryan, and that's going to be, it's going to make it real interesting. That's for sure.
The top 10 is as follows. JD Racing in 10th, 2,094. In 9th is Factory of Sadness 6, 2,101. 8th is Dr. Race Chaser, 2,123. 7th, Blaney Bus, 2,125. 6th is Penske Fan 24, 2,134. 5th is Pocono Lady, 2,140. Or sorry, Penske Fan was 2,134. Pocono Lady, 2,144. 4th is Blaney 10, 2,153. Alyssa C is in 3rd, 2,159. We have some drama at the top of the leaderboard. Frank Fan 12 and Go Larson are tied in the overall standings with 2,185 points. So not too shabby for both of us, I think, to be in the top 25 of the league. I think we're doing okay. But that now brings us to this upcoming weekend's race at the Kansas Speedway, and it kicks off festivities kick off on Saturday, May 4th, 5 p.m. Eastern time, so a little bit later than it's been the last few weeks. NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying at Kansas on FS1 followed at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Heart of America 200 at Kansas, also on FS1. Then Sunday, May 5th, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the NASCAR Cup Series Advent Health 400 at Kansas Speedway. Let's take a look at Ryan Blaney's career statistics. And I have to say, this is a track for Ryan that is feast or famine. Either runs up front, top 10, or something bad happens, crashes out, 20th or worse. He has like what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 finishes there of his 18 starts where it's 20th or worse because something has happened. 18 career starts, average start of 10.7, including a pole position in 2017 when he was driving for the Wood Brothers. Average finish of 16.2, 2 DNFs, 7 top 10s, 3 top 5s. Like I said, it just goes back and forth. 37th, 7th, 32nd, 21, 20th, 7th, 21st, 37th, 12th, 9th, 16th, 12th. So 12, 9, 16, 12 are the last 4 starts at Kansas. So it hasn't been super stellar. Also worth pointing out, 2014, in this race, he makes his Cup Series debut. Great stories from that. I think I might even pull up, that interview video we have from when we interviewed Ryan last year, and he can talk about how he bumps his dad from the field. One of Steve Mez's favorite Blaney racing family stories for sure. So I think I'll share that this week on social media. But yeah, he makes that debut in the 12 car. That's another thing people don't realize. They think that he made his debut for the Wood Brothers. No, makes his debut in the Penske 12 car sponsored by SKF. It was a blue car. 2014, started 21st, finished 27th in the 12. So Kansas is kind of a special place when it comes to Ryan Blaney. Now this week, he just needs to kind of get over the hump there, get back into the top 10. Always has lots of speed there. What do you think their chances are finally going to victory lane in 2024?
Well, they like I said, the mile and a half that they have run, they show pretty good speed at. Texas and Vegas have been pretty decent. But this is like 23:11, this track, right? I mean, between the 45 and the 23, they are extremely fast when they get to Kansas, and the Toyotas as a whole, extremely fast. But I'll bring the voodoo dolls and whatever else I got to bring on Sunday, and hopefully keep the rain away. That's like 30% chance right now. But I think it'll be a great day. As long as the team can be up there near the front and just execute, like I said, executing the pit stops like they did today. Mile and a halfs are a little bit less chaotic on the green flag pit cycle because you don't really have a chance to lose 2 laps, maybe 1, depending on where you're at in that pit cycle. But a lot of times, if you're one of the faster cars, you come out of that pit cycle smelling like a rose. So I just can't wait to see all that action and really just sit back and enjoy another great weekend of racing following the 12 team.
Now you talk about it being, 23:11, and that includes their owner, who's also won, their co-owner that's won multiple races. Now let's go back here. I'll go back to 2019, even though that's still a couple years before the next gen car debuts. But 2019 spring race, Keselowski wins, followed by Hamlin, then Logano, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson, Kurt Busch, Bubba Wallace, Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick. So people involved with 23:11 or running for 23:11 have won every race since 2022 there. But, Denny Hamlin just wins at Dover. Would not be shocked to see Denny Hamlin just continue this run. I mean, he's another strong run for that car. Now, again, struggles when it comes to the playoffs. But this year, I mean, they've, between his pit crew and the speed that they're bringing to the racetrack, the 11 car has been in contention for nearly every week.
Yeah, they can go ahead and blow their wad in May all they want. The money time is in October.
For sure. So again, if you want to tune in this weekend, Kansas Speedway, Saturday, May 4th, you can catch NASCAR Cup Series practice and qualifying at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1. Then you can stay tuned in at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series Heart of America 200 at Kansas, also on FS1. Trucks usually put on a pretty good show on mile and a half tracks. 3 p.m. Eastern Time, Sunday, May 5th, NASCAR Cup Series Advent Health 400 at Kansas Speedway, also on FS1. Steve, you mentioned that you are headed there This is one of your tracks that you're checking off the list here you've never been to before. What made you guys decide to pick up, because Kansas is not close to Ohio?
No.
What made you want to pick up stakes and head there for the weekend?
We wanted to take an actual couple-day vacation for once. A lot of these trips have been like around a weekend, hurry back on Monday, be back at work on Tuesday. We took a couple days off on the other end, and take a little bit of vacation finally. Enjoy the trip there. Probably still kind of hurry back, but not like, hopefully the weather, like the whole weather cooperates too, because if the weather doesn't, we'll be there Monday. We'll stick around. Yeah, it's kind of an interesting trip, because once in Ohio, once you get on 70, it's pretty much 70 all the way across Indiana, Illinois, and Missouri. So it should be a lot of fun.
Well, like you said, hopefully Team Mez, who we've mentioned has seen Ryan in victory lane multiple times over his career, brings that good winning energy to Kansas, and the 12 car can finally get to victory lane for the first time in 2024. And what better place than Kansas Speedway, a place that he's run well at in the past, but just needs to get to that next level and finally make a trip to victory lane. So I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode of the Team Blaney podcast. Thank you everyone for tuning in. You can interact with us on Facebook and X at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at team.blaney. We'd also like to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Ryan's official charitable organization benefits brain health causes like UPMC Sports Medicine and the Alzheimer's Association. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org or follow them on Facebook, X, and Instagram. So, for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Calgary. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.